We are live for the second time in 6 days, Shane.
Did we? So we did go live last week, right? Like I didn't
Last
imagine that.
it was Monday. I believe our last stream was Monday, June 20th. So now it is June 26th. So that is twice in less than one calendar week.
Oh yeah, there's no way we're doing another show for like a month. But good for us. Good for us.
I mean, isn't this kind of the, I don't want to say dead period, but dead period in Dynasty where there's not a lot to do other than make content and talk about things that could happen or things that have happened, right?
Oh, we got some things that could happen too this week, right? We think this week. I think this week.
What are you talking about, Mr. Watson?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's only going to be 3 or 4 days. I don't know why. I've been through arbitration processes before, and it's never really taken that long. I can't imagine this is going to take all that long.
Yeah, I think it's set to begin Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday kicks off. I don't think it's live anywhere. Surprisingly, the NFL Network won't be showing it. Yeah,
Amazon didn't buy it up, and the NFL sold it to them.
Yeah, no, apparently not. And I'm guessing, and I've already gone with the conspiracy theory that it's going to be a Friday news dump, no matter what happens. So we're looking at what we think a year.
Yeah, I don't really know because I do believe the NFL wants to send the right message. You know what I mean, by giving them a year or more. But I also don't buy that the NFLPA and the Watson camp is just going to allow them to say indefinite suspension, and then we'll see what happens in the next 6 months, and then we'll decide to suspend you longer, or we won't reinstate you, to where it's just up in limbo. You know what I mean? And he doesn't know when he's able to come back. So I think they're probably going to push for, tell me my punishment, whatever it is. I'll either accept it or I won't, but don't leave it open, but you're also not going to let me play. And I think that's what the NFL wants. Like, if they could have their cake and eat it too, they would do that, and then be able to decide in 6 months, seeing what happens with him and what he decides to do. They can suspend him again if they don't like what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's really fair, though. But what's fair? There's no fair in this.
And let's talk about something we actually know, because neither you or I are legal scholars. I am a well-versed in bird law, but, that doesn't really help me here. Deshaun Watson market, though, before we get into it, I made a trade today. I traded for Deshaun Watson. I gave up Justin Fields and a couple 2023 second rounders. And I felt like that's a decent price.
So you gave up Fields in 2 seconds and got Watson?
Yeah. Because in no universe would you be able to get, taking out all the other stuff. And trust me, I've discussed the other stuff ad nauseum, all the bad things about him as a human being, but just looking at the actual potential on the fantasy football field, right? In 2023, I'm already giving out 2022, giving up on that. I don't know that you can get that type of quarterback for that type of cost, that type of cheap payment in any other circumstance.
Yeah, I think, I did a deal a couple weeks ago. It was actually a kitchen sink. So there was contracts and stuff. And Watson, it's not the same as a dynasty league because you're subject to the contract length. You know what I mean? So losing a year in a contract league I was more apt to say, okay, of the shares I have of Watson, that's where one of them I wanted to trade away, because if I eat a year in the contract league, then all of a sudden he's only had 2 years left on his deal. You're in kitchen sink leagues. When there's a 1-year contract, it's kind of like, well, now I have to pay to keep this guy past this year. So the value you get back is minimal. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this is the one I want to trade away. But I actually traded him for Fields. Now, Fields was on an open contract, though. So I could give Fields like a 4-year deal if I won. So that's part of the benefit is, that sways probably the value side to Fields. The only thing I would say with your deal is, let's say they announce a year, okay? Indefinite, but it's going to be this year. And then they leave it open-ended, which I think is worst case scenario for Watson. If they just say 1 year and then he can come back without any strings attached, then I think people would accept that. But don't you think you can probably get him for less than Fields at that point? What do you think the market's going to be if they say a year? I think that's what everyone's banking. It could be less, it could be more. But let's say it's 1 year. You think you can actually get him for less? Can you get him for like Carr, Cousins, Tua, that type of price?
I don't think you can. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that you shouldn't try. You should definitely try. I don't think you can, though. Cousins, maybe. Cousins, because you're going to get quarterback one production out of him at least next year and probably the following year. I know going into it, I'm already assuming he's gone for 2021, 2022, right? So that cost's already baked into my mind. I can't see it dropping. And I think anyone that's held him this long at this point is just going to be pop committed and go, all right, well, unless I'm cashing out for at least a Fields plus, there's really no reason for me to move off of him. You know, I've held him this long. I might as well just wait out the final year. Again, yeah, that's if he gets an actual year. If they make it open-ended, then that's a whole other conversation. Some people might just get fatigued and go, you know what, let me just get him off my roster and be done with this.
Yeah, I think you're correct. That's the current market. Is it's already a 1-year suspension being baked into the current price. I think if you said it's guaranteed to be 8 games, the market really wouldn't balk at all. You know what I mean? He'd still be a first-round startup pick if he was only going to be suspended for half the season. Because I really haven't seen a decline in market for guys that are supposed to be on the PUP list either. You know, like you're not getting a 30% discount on Chris Godwin or someone like that just because he's going to miss maybe the first 6 games. So I think if it was less than a year, then the market really wouldn't change. But I do also think you're right with the person that's holding him is probably already factoring in, okay, if I can get he's suspended for 1 year price and I don't want him on my team, they're probably trying to sell him for like Fields or Lance. You know what I mean? Like they're already doing that. They're not waiting for that offer to come to them. Whereas if I'm buying, I mean, I sent out some offers this morning. I posted in our patron chat and every one of them was getting declined I didn't get any comments back, but I think it's probably one of those managers I was dealing with he was just dug in. You know what I mean? He was dug in. He's not moving Watson for less than what the 8-game suspension price would be. So there was not going to be a deal to be had. I was actually offering him what came down to like a swap of a 23 first. Okay. I think his pick will be higher than mine. So I'm banking that, okay, I'm taking on Watson, but I'm still going to swap picks with him. So call it the 104 for the 108, 109 next year, something like that. I give him Cousins. He gives me Watson. And I was also giving him a 24 first. So that tells me that he is either way overvaluing that 104, 105 to 108 to 110 pick slot, or he won't even do Watson for Cousins in a 24 first. Mm-hmm. I think you would do that, right? Someone sends you that for your Watson, you're smash accepting that. Even if they said, hey, I'm swapping first with you, I want your first because now you're taking Watson on your roster. So they're almost betting against your first a little bit. You know what I mean? But I think you'd even do that. You just swap 2 random first. You'd take the 24 first and the Cousins all day, right?
Yes, sir.
Carr and Tua, same deal.
Yeah, we have a trade. We have a trade in there in the comments. I can't. Again, I don't have actual powers to put trades up because
I'll get to some comments. So okay,
I can't be trusted with that ability.
Let me do a little bit of an intro to the show. We got to shout out some people. Kevin, he was here. He was the first comment. Kevin, let's go. Yep. Joe, he was here last week asking some questions.
What's up, Joe?
You made fun of his last name, and you kept saying Herbert or Abear, and you weren't sure which one it was. Abear. Yep. It's got to be Abear. Yep. Oh, like the quarterback, Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
And Ed Wagner. There you go. Shout out to Shane.
The happy dude.
First time watcher, Fizzle Dallas. First time live. What's up? We're not going to get into this because we do like 10 minutes on Mannequin Chill of why Ridley is a totally different situation than Watson. Shane, when you're in sports and you mess with their bottom line when it comes to gambling, you might as well committed murder. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's worse than murder. We know that. We've seen players step back on the field after killing people in less time than Ridley got. So yeah. And that goes for football, baseball. That's any sport, man. Yeah. Gambling's the cardinal sin. They don't nothing, because it messes with the integrity of the game. Whereas murder and stuff is just, just murder.
Yep. Just murder. All right, let's get to the Watson trade. I have a couple other trades. I'll get to those after we do this. But Nico says the best he can get for Watson is a 23 first and Matt Ryan. I assume this is we'll just say a 12-team, start 10. If it's like 8-team or 10-team or whatever, then I don't know. But let's just assume 12-team, start 10. Nico, if you want to clarify in the comments, that may help. But let's just say it's a 12-team, start 10. You taking this for Watson?
So here's my thing. If I'm trying to trade him, I'm accepting anything that involves a 23 first. Just about
Okay.
anything that involves a 23 first. Just because of how good that class is, I could get a quarterback that I think is as good as him. It's a fungible asset. I can do so many different things with it. You're getting a quarterback back, which, okay, I don't particularly like Matt Ryan. I don't think he's going to be of much use to you, but I get it. So I'm fine with that. Yeah. And you know your league. And you put it out there best I can get. I'm assuming you went down every roster in the league like I often do and go, all right, well, let me try this. And if this is the best you can do and you want to be done with it, be done with it.
So here's the only thing, because I think he posted one more piece in that comment was he only has Russell Wilson and Jimmy G. So, I mean, we don't know what the rest of the roster looks like, but let's say you have a team where you have Watson, but you're a middling team. This is one of those teams you might even be considering tanking back to the bottom, right? You have your own first. You're not sure if you're a playoff team or not, and you have Watson. Are you still looking to sell in those leagues, or are those the ones where you kind of don't mind parking him on the team if you can't get maybe two pieces instead of taking this? Because I'm not sure if he doesn't have a great team. I'm not sure if Matt Ryan and Jimmy G is helping him necessarily compete anyway.
No,
Whereas
no.
that you'd want Watson on one of those teams. If I want to see, here's my thing. I want to have some exposure to Watson. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to have him on 0 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have him on 10 teams. But what I want to do is maybe I want to have him on like 5 rosters. But I want to have him on 5 rosters that I think fits absorbing his year-long suspension the easiest. I don't want to be like, oh, I have Watson on my absolutely stacked team, but I'm just going to keep him there because I can't get more than what I want. You know what I mean? That's the one where maybe I'll sell for the market price if it bottoms out, but then I'll try to buy on another team where I'm not winning anyway. So that would be my question. If you're not contending and you have Watson, do you still take this trade?
Yeah, I look, to me, this is probably more specific to the Watson situation. This isn't really a process thing. This is like, all right, I need to get him off my roster. I want him off my roster. I want to be done with this. For all we know, tomorrow or Friday, the ruling could actually be that he's suspended for life. You know what I mean? Even though in the range of outcomes, that's probably really small. I'm fine with it. Watson on your team, on this team, isn't going to help you anyway, either way, next year, right? I mean, that's where we're at. Like I said, Matt Ryan's not going to particularly help me, I don't think, but I bet you I could get a second rounder plus for him at least. So I'm fine with it. Fine with it.
Yeah, I got to put this comment up there. Yes, Jared, I think Deshaun Watson's situation, I mean, is one of the most fascinating in Dynasty if you're just talking like value theory, you know? Like we're not even talking about we're not even getting into what the allegations are and what he did, but just in terms of we may never see a situation like this again.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah, but it's a top 10 startup pick, and the market literally changes every single day. So I mean, yeah, it is. People do want to hear about it. I think people get sick of hearing about it. I think everybody's ready for it to, find out what the suspension is going to be. You know what I mean? But yeah. I think people do want to hear about, the different transactions and how the market goes up and down.
Yeah, because you look at the Tyreek Hill situation, even when that happened with him, he wasn't Tyreek Hill yet. He wasn't that guy. Kareem Hunt was very, 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 very good, but he was a running back too. Very different scenario. So yeah, it's very interesting, very unique.
Got some other trades. Let's see. Ed Wagner posted one. Breece Hall or Drake London in a 23 first. We had a similar one, I think, on trades in 5 stream last night. I think you took the Drake London side, didn't you?
Yep, I'm taking the Drake in the pick.
Yeah, I think the last nights we did was it Drake and maybe another piece. I don't know if it was a 23 first, but I was a little more on the fence with you. But I can't quit the 23 first, so I'm just hoping I can basically get another Breece Hall or something close to it, or can move my way into it. So I think I'll take the package as well. Oh, we had another one. Jared did post a trade. CEH in a 23 first. Get DeAndre Swift.
Look, I hate getting running backs, right? I hate giving up 23 firsts for him, but you're basically giving up a singular 23 first. I'm okay with it. He's not on my list of guys, which I have to actually write down one of these days. That is 2023 first proof. I'm fine with that. I mean, the only thing is the other dude got CEH off you, so he knew what he was doing. He's doing a whole process trade, ready to move on from DeAndre. We're talking about guys that have running back one season range of outcomes in their skill set, in their future. Still could be Swift. Before last year, I thought, that was definitely in his range of outcomes. It didn't happen because he got injured, but he saw a ton of targets, even if he wasn't especially efficient as a running back.
Yeah, I made a similar deal about 10 days ago. I traded Swift for Kareem Hunt in the 23 first. And I think you could insert Tony Pollard, Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary, Rashad White, James Cook. You could put a lot of guys in there and you'd be like, oh, I can squint and tell my story that, the guy I'm getting back still gives me RB2 production. You know what I mean? And if Swift doesn't hit his ceiling, if he's outside of the top 7, 8, I think process-wise, you made a good deal here. But Swift could smash, and he could be, he could have a Kamara or Eckler season, and you're going like, why the hell did I trade him away for, I can replace one of those other running backs that I got back for just, a second rounder or something like that. So you could definitely lose that trade for sure. Let's see. We had another one. B. Zaltzberg, 12-team Superflex, half PPR, so start 9, shallow. Tear down from Waddle. What's the plus if you want Pittman?
I mean, Waddle should get me. I should be able to get a first with Pittman for Waddle. Waddle, I think, unless I've missed something, even with the Tyreek Hill, the market was more in on him than Pittman. Although I know over the last month or so, we've all fallen back in love with Pittman as we realize Matt Ryan's better than Carson Wentz. I don't particularly like tearing down and start 9s. I don't know that this is that far of a tear down, to be quite honest with you, though.
Yeah, I honestly think in a half PPR, so not that the receivers don't matter, but the impact is slightly less because those flexes are going to favor running backs a little bit more. I'm not sure you go to the Pittman manager and they give you much more. They might say, okay, I'll give you a third. And to start 9, though, a third is really the only thing you can get with a third is a spot start maybe later on, or package it in another trade and get a second. You know what I mean? I actually would you do Waddle in a third for Pittman in a second and bank that, okay, now you're one step closer to maybe turning that second packaged with something else and maybe getting a better piece? Like, is that the best you could do? I don't think you could get much more than that.
It'd be hard to see getting that first. Maybe if I give the second and Waddle, I get Pittman in the first. But even then, it's probably going to be tough. I think giving up a third and getting back a second, like you said, is probably the best I can do. And it's probably the least I would do, because obviously I wouldn't do it if I'm giving up a fourth and getting back a third. I don't care about the third particularly.
I mean, it feels like people actually have Pittman like equal with Waddle or close to it. Like, I don't think they're that far off. They were 3 months ago, but I don't think they are now. Everything's kind of broke right for Pittman's situation and everything hasn't for Waddle's. So I think they've moved closer together as we've gotten into this offseason. All right, we had another one. Dylan, he did make a Watson trade. So got Watson in 205, gave up Fields, Sky Moore, 306 before the 23rd and 24th lawsuits were filed. So kind of similar to yours, but he also traded essentially Sky Moore in the 306 for the 205. So he definitely gave up a little bit more on top of Fields. So I'm guessing where are you at on this? It's kind of similar value to your trade, I think.
Yeah, I hate giving up Sky Moore, man. I love Sky Moore so much. That's enough value on the field side where I could talk myself into being like, nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, I think I guess I'm still a little confused though with the 205 with Sky Moore and the 306. You know what I mean? Like, are those maybe it was a trade where it had happened in the middle of the draft, I'm guessing, and the 205 hadn't been picked yet, but he already had taken Sky Moore earlier. That had to have been when it took place. So I think I would still lean the Fields side though, just because I'm not opposed in the right situations to trading Watson for Fields.
And it could be one of those drafts that split up over the summer. Maybe they only have a 2-round. I love those drafts that you do half the draft in the beginning of the offseason and then the other half towards the end of the offseason.
Yeah, we should consider maybe changing one of our leagues to that, where you do the first round at one time and then maybe a month later do the second, then a month later do the third. I've been in a couple of those before. It does make – I like it because it makes the first couple picks of the next round a little more valuable. You know, if you're holding like the 201 or the 202, but you don't draft those until July,
right?
they definitely change between like end of April to July a little bit. So, all right, Connor Plunk says, would you trade Waddle in a 23 second for Mike Williams in a 23 or Mike Evans in a 23 first?
Oh, yes, I would.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those where you lean into the process, I think, and take the gap between the 23 first and the 23 second is probably larger than the, I guess, maybe 2-year window or so of the wide receiver production, and maybe longer. I mean, there is a world where Williams is. I mean, he re-upped with the Chargers for 3 years. There's a world where he's tied. Evans. Yeah, sorry, I keep saying that. There's a world where Evans still over the next 2 or 3 years outproduces or is right there with Waddle. So it's how much far out are you going to value because of the age?
Yeah, and I've been discussing lately. I just talked about it on the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast about like I'm out on old men. I say that half jokingly. Mike Evans is 28 years old, but if you're going to buy in on elderly wide receivers, buy on ones that have been elite their entire career, because those tend to be the ones that are going to continue to be elite and outliers beyond the age of 29, 30 years old. So I like this trade, especially getting the first, obviously. But yeah, Mike Evans.
So you do this trade. Are you looking to then flip Evans with the season? I mean, he's been getting a lot of hype recently in terms of like people expect him to smash early on this year with Godwin out. Would you try to flip him and get younger? Would you try to go get like Sky Moore and a pick or something like that? Or
yeah, I'd feel out. Probably it's got to be. I'm looking for production, like known production. So I'm probably looking to see, can I get Marquise Brown in a pick? Just to see, because getting Evans in this trade, that tier of a wide receiver, I'm definitely looking at his production. And so I don't want to just give him up and then just have a hole there where I'm hoping Sky Moore is going to break through in year one, or,
right.
Plug in your random rookie wide receiver.
All right. Dad and 30 traded away 323 firsts. Got back Watson, Hollywood Brown, Pat Freiermuth. 12 teams, start 10. Then he traded Hollywood Brown for a 23 first. So 2 trades here, but you can almost remove Hollywood and one of the first that he traded away. So 2 firsts for Watson and Pat Freiermuth. And I'm assuming no tight end premium. I think it sounds like you definitely lean the 2 firsts there, since you said you'd trade Watson for 1, right?
Yeah, I can't. That's a little more pot committed than I can be. You know what I mean? Where when I'm talking about trading for him and I'm thinking through worst case scenarios in my head and best case scenarios, look, I know there's a world where giving up 223 firsts is going to make sense in 2 years' time if he's out there doing what we think he can do. But I'm too much of a scaredy cat to do it. I'm not going to give up. I wouldn't have made the first trade, so the second trade wouldn't have happened. I mean, I appreciate that you got Hollywood and Pat Freiermuth back, though. At least you got additional assets when you gave up those firsts.
Yeah, I think that the process the value isn't absolutely horrible. Maybe it's a little more than what Shane would pay. But I think the negative part is that assuming one of those firsts you originally traded away was your own, you're kind of doubling down in a negative way on your own pick. You know what I mean? You're buying Watson and then selling presumably your 23 first, whereas I almost want to be doing the opposite. Like we just did our Ohio startup yesterday, right? I traded up to get 2 elite quarterbacks, the typical, Scott, DNC, Mannequin Chill, that's what we want to do. But then I traded back and I targeted the team that drafted Watson in the startup. I wanted their 23 first. I got it. The team that drafted Brady in the startup, I targeted his 24 first and got it. So I targeted those 2 specific teams, just basically saying, I'm going to bet against them having a hole at quarterback in each of these years. So I purposely went after, the Watson manager has a good team, but I also looked at it and I'm like, he's got a big hole at quarterback. So I want his 23 first. So I targeted his pick. I wasn't going to be able to get Watson from him because he just took him in the second round of the startup. So let me get his first. So I think if you're trading away picks and it's your own, and then you're putting Watson on your own team, you better have a really good team to support him. Otherwise, you just traded away the 104, 105 if you miss the playoffs. So I think that's where you just got to be careful when doubling down on that type of move. Oh, let's see. Dominic, 50-58. Rate the trade. 223 first, 3 seconds. And wait a second. He sent 223 first and 3 seconds. Oh, okay. So twice, two 23 seconds and a 24 second. So 5 picks for T. Higgins, Travis Etienne.
It's a
I don't know the
lot.
format or anything. So
Yeah, that's a ton of capital. Like I'm looking at it, I get it because I'm definitely the dude that's like, hey, I'll overpay to get my guys. I'm not in love with it. I'm going to assume you poked around the rest of the league and saw what this kind of package could have gotten you. But I will say at least you got a super young wide receiver who has a wide receiver 1 season in his future, probably. And Etienne, who I'm back in love with now that I'm no longer afraid of, is Liz Frank. Seconds don't really bother me that much. Wait, and 124. Oh, okay, 2024 second. Okay. Wait. And one time. Yeah. Okay, so 323. Okay, 3 seconds, 3 firsts, right?
no, 2 firsts, and then he traded away 2 23 seconds and 1 24 second. So he traded away 5 picks. And that's my beef with the trade. I think
Man,
if
it's
you
so
really
much.
wanted to trade 2 23 firsts for Higgins and Etienne, especially in a 1 quarterback, that's fine. Super flex, I think it's right on the fringe. I'm more stringent than Shane on the 23 first, but I think we're pretty close. Like we're not just throwing them around for wide receiver 2s or running back 2s. You know what I mean? But if you said, okay, if I'm going to trade him away and I have 223 first banked, if I'm going to trade him away, I at least want to buy a little bit of insulation. If Higgins and Etienne don't get hurt, they're probably going to hold their relative value into next year. You may not be able to flip them for 23 first next year on the clock, but they're not going to completely fade out. Like you're not trading for Derrick Henry and, Keenan Allen with these picks. You know what I mean? Where those guys literally could drop off the cliff. So I like buying the insulation. I actually have a problem with giving away the 3 seconds. Those are pieces that could kind of help insure your team throughout the year. You just gave them all away in this trade where I just wonder if you just offer the 223 first, could you get the 2 players? Maybe he tried. I'm guessing he probably tried to offer less, and this is what he had to pay. So I don't love it just because you gave up the 5 picks. How many times have you traded a second for a usable player in the season to get some points? And you gave up.
I mean, I'm assuming that any second I have, I can get Brandon Cooks ish off of someone in the league at some point during the year, right? And I'm losing it. I don't have one of those seconds to do that bullet now.
Well, no, and what you're giving up is that there might be a time where someone goes, okay, this guy just got hurt. He's 29 years old. I'll take any second. You know what I mean? But then he comes back and helps you later on in the year. You just don't have him. You go to your picks and you go, oh, I'd pay a second. Oh, yeah. Traded them all away to get 2 players. I wish I would have had a little more insurance. So that would be my only drawback. I know where you're at on this one, Javonte or CD.
CD.
Yeah. Which is crazy because like 2 months ago, we would have laughed at this and been like, oh, it's Javonte.
Javonte.
CD's. Yeah.
Javonte, look, we've seen startup value for running backs does not equal trade value, right? Javonte is a top 5 startup running back, probably. Try to trade him for that or commensurate value. You're not getting it. Like you can't even trade Najee Harris, who's either the RB2 or the RB3 for equal value right now. So I was expecting a Javonte Williams spike. The market said, no, we hate running backs. We're not going to do that. We know that 2023 is going to have a ton of running backs in the class, so we're just not going to value them. So that's why I'm leaning CD now. I thought there'd be a much bigger spike on Javonte. That just didn't happen.
Well, there's a startup spike because when you draft a running back and you commit to a running back in a startup, you have your ability to build a team around that running back. Trading them on the open market is different because basically people want to charge you the premium of what it would cost to pick them in a startup. But I mean, if you or I ever, I think it would be rare that we did a startup and we took a running back in the second round. But if we did, we would probably build our team a specific way around taking that running back, right?
Right.
So we acknowledge that there's a reason why we're probably paying that startup price. It's because we're going to design our team a certain way. When you go out and say, okay, well, you can trade for Javonte, but you have to pay that same quote unquote startup price. Well, look, CeeDee Lamb might not go ahead of Javonte, so I need CeeDee Lamb plus. And you're just going, no, I've already probably designed my team around it. I don't want to break it up and pay for a running back. So 16 teamers, Gavin Grant. We don't get a lot of 16 team questions, but he gave Saquon and Godwin for Amari Rodgers in 223 first. I put this one up there to you because I know you're in some 16 teamers. If you hit on the picks and they become premier like quarterbacks or running backs in a 16 team, it's huge. But if you traded these pieces away and it's the 112 and the 116, you feel like you didn't get enough. So there's a bigger delta. There's more risk, I think, if you're just trading blindly for future picks.
Man, this is hard for me to say. I'm going to stick on the Saquon and Godwin side. I think those firsts, when I'm looking to do it in a 16-team league, I'm definitely looking to break up those firsts. And even if it was a 112, 116, I'm going to assume they can't be that bad. Although if it is the 116, you won. I don't care about Amari Rodgers, even in a 16 team. He's still not going to start for you. I'm going to go with Saquon and Godwin. I feel like you should get more back for those guys than just 2 firsts.
I probably still lean the picks, but just acknowledge that when you're in deeper leagues, when you're in a 14-teamer or especially a 16-teamer, there's it still says random 23 first, right?
Yeah.
But it's a massive gap between, because you also have, like, we're in a 16-team start 14. So it's brutal. But it's also 2 tight ends with 1.75 premium. So the gap between the 101, if you hit on a quarterback, and the 116, it still says random 2023 first, but you do have to be more cognizant on which ones you accept, because if you get all late picks, it doesn't really feel like you got a first, even though it says a first. The power is you can trade it away as a first. That's it.
Once it gets, look, we don't even like 110, 111, 112 and 12 team leagues. So you know what I mean? You're just adding 113, 114, 115, 116 to that. And those are basically, no one counts those as first round picks when we're talking about players. We're like, well, it's really the 202, 203.
So if you're in those 14 or 16 teamers and you have good teams, are you actually more tempted to try to go hide your first in trades because of that same factor right there? Like, or do you just trade your first because of that? Like, hey, I'm trading away the 115. This is really the 203. Ha ha ha. Hopefully he accepts a trade. You try that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any of my firsts in 16 in my 16 team leagues because I'm assuming I'm going to be good. All right, let me rephrase that.
I mean, that answers the question, right? You don't even have any.
The rosters that I know are good, that unless there's a catastrophe, you know what I mean, where everything goes wrong, that pick's just going to be lower end. I'm moving it. It's fine.
Yeah. Husker DB or Husker DKB. I always forget that K in there. Shout out. He's a patron of ours. Barkley and Winston, Higgins and Goff. I prefer Winston to Goff, but you could almost probably flip a coin on where people are on that. I think Winston probably has higher ceiling and maybe more lasting power, but how do you see this trade? That's a tough one for you because I know you want to buy Barkley, but you also love T. Higgins. So is this a roster construction deal or what's the pure value side?
I'm not going to make this trade. I'm going to try to work a way around this because I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But forced to choose, I'm taking Barkley and Winston, and then I'm going to try to trade Barkley for Higgins straight up.
Wait a second. So they send you Higgins and Goff, you get Winston and Barkley, and then you accept it, then turn around and send Barkley for Higgins.
Yeah, I'm going to send Barkley back for Higgins if I can.
Okay. Or you got to wait like a week and see if he forgot that he actually traded you those players in the first place.
It's fine.
All right, Jeff Wozniak asked us a trade. I think I know where Shane's on this one. You like Higgins over Debo, right? Or no? This is Saquon plus John Mechie for Debo.
So it's really Debo over Saquon. Mechie.
Then you know what? He's a free. It's like getting the third on the top. You know what I mean?
You know what? Mechie's a good second round rookie pick this year. He's a guy that I picked up in a lot of my leagues because I do expect him to give me some wide receiver for 3 seasons. Man, again, this is probably another trade I'm just not going to make because Debo and Saquon are both guys that I'm actually trying to get out of. I can't imagine I'm trading one for the other because I don't know if I was forced. I think I'm going Debo because he's the wide receiver and he's got more of insulation as opposed to Saquon, who is going to be 25 and hasn't produced since 2019.
So let's say if you had both assets, either Debo or Saquon, which one do you think you could get the best offer for in the next 6 weeks? Because that can almost dictate your trade. If I'm just holding one and I put him on the block, which one would you get the mega offer for or the best offer? It's probably Barkley, I think.
I don't know, because here's the problem. A lot of people are conflicted on these players like me, right? I would guess it's Barkley, though, because he is the running back. It's the more scarce position. There are people still in love with his quads.
Now, what if Debo signs a big extension? You think that could bump him up?
It shouldn't, but it will.
Then you know what? Now that I think about it more, that's probably going to happen in like July or August, and you'd want to have that guy because you might be able to trade him that day. You know, someone might want him then. So I would lean the Debo side. Good trade though. I like the dynamics of that where you get the Mechie piece because Mechie's a guy if he ever plays this year and just looks okay for a couple games, you can probably sell him for a second, like a 24 second. You know what I mean? Like he's more than just a, you know, I'm throwing in a 24 third or something like that. So Big T, we know Big T from our patron chat. Would you anchor Saquon or CMC as your anchor in a running back room on a startup? I would. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have much lesser anchors, so having one of those two guys, I'm more than okay with.
Well, I mean, okay, so when you would do a startup, if one of those guys falls to a range where, let's say Barkley falls to the 4th round or something like that, and you've already taken your quarterbacks, it's really just a 1 to 2 year window anyway, right? Like I'm not necessarily drafting a running back early. I'm making sure my roster construction probably aligns with what I want. And if I get 2 years of good production like that, I'm doing backflips. You know what I mean? Like that's what you decide. That's what you've basically accepted when you take a running back early in a startup.
Yeah, I'm fine with these guys in the 4th if either one of them is sitting out there.
Cody Smith, 12-team Superflex. He clarified that. Best ball. So start 11, best ball. You and I don't do a lot of best ball Dynasty, but I'm kind of fascinated by the theory of it. But it's a 12-team start 11. What would you sell AJ Brown for picks? I'd take a 23 first for him probably.
I'm not sure. Some days, and I don't know if it's the Eagle Green. Some days I'm like, hey, you move him for a 23 first. But I think he's going to smash. I want more back for him. And start 11 at that. Yeah. Now, best ball is where it gets a little fluky for me, a little funky. But I'm probably going to want more than one 2023 first.
Interesting. Yeah, I think see, it's weird because you put this on Twitter or you look what people's thoughts are because they're just going to see AJ Brown and like, man, he's worth more than a random first. But I think you could probably either hit a home run with the Eagles situation or, you know, you could be way overvaluing it. I think there's people on both sides of it. So that's a tough one. I don't think I'd blindly sell, but I'm certainly not adding to 23 first to go buy. In fact, I'm probably not unless I have a very targeted 23 first that I'm pretty confident like he's the best player I can get. I'm not even just blindly sending him out in every league anyway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those guys in the middle. Here we go. None your business. I like that. I like that name. And I think he executed a smash trade here. All he gave was Goff, Claypool, and a second for a first, an early to mid first, and he got a third.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can do those kind of deals where you basically throw, you know, 2 quarters and a dime, and you get back a dollar bill and a nickel, then do it.
It feels like he that 23 first he's talking about is from the team that he traded to because he just gave him Goff, and that dude is apparently or gal is targeting Goff to start for them. So that team is not going to be great.
So yeah, he goes, let's see. You look like you have a mid 23 first, so I'm going to give you Goff, and now it's an early to mid 23 first.
I just made your team worse.
You know what? And that sounds like we're laughing at Goff, but in a way, if a team comes to you and they want to do a deal like this and they're willing to buy, I did a trade like this in a league about 2 weeks ago where I traded Mike Gesicki, Michael Gallup, and Chase Edmonds for a 23 first. And it's a 14-team start 13. And I looked at this guy's team and I'm like, I can clearly see why in a 14-team start 13, he wants players, right? But then I looked at the players and I'm like, you know, and I have a really good team. So I'm dealing from excess of this. And I'm looking at this going like, I'm not sure if these players actually help him a ton, but he's also much less likely to go buy more players because he just traded me his first.
Right.
So it's almost like this team probably needs a quarterback, but they're trading you their first, and they're now like committed to playing Goff every week probably, which might make his team worse relative to the rest of the league. So interesting, like next level thinking when you look at that. Here's Henry. We know Henry. He's been in a couple of our chats before and whatnot. FFPC startup. Through 15 rounds, he only has 3 players. 623 firsts, 223 seconds. He has 14 picks in the remaining 5 rounds. So he's going to the extreme. Is he insane, Shane? You've done some FFPCs.
I'll say he's not insane. He has a plan, right? Now, whether we agree with that plan or not is a whole other conversation. Are you insane? No, you have a plan and you executed it to damn near perfection. You're punting this year. You got a couple young guys and you got a butt ton of 2023 first. The only problem is it's FFPC and it's small roster sizes and small starting rosters, which is really my only concern. But I don't think you're insane. No, you had a plan and you went with it.
Yeah, my only drawback is we talk a lot of FFPC in our patron chat and DNC at least on that you really it's tough to navigate currently with the current dynasty landscape because wide receivers are so valuable, but they're also such a drain in FFPC if you end up missing on a receiver when you draft them. Because immediately in these formats, if you were holding Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney, they're barely on your cut line. Like you almost don't even want to keep them. You know, if I can pick up backup running backs in a league where the most I can start is 4 receivers, it's hard to handle or hold a guy like Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney. You're going to hold him because you invested so much. You're going to probably hold him for 2 years, but you're not holding like Terrace Marshall. Like you're just not. He's gonna not make your cuts. There's better players that are going to be in the waiver wire draft and in the rookie draft. So it's hard to load up on picks. Whereas if you're in a deeper league with a lot more roster spots, I feel a lot more confident just going in. Okay, next year I may miss out on a couple of the running backs and a couple of the quarterbacks, but guess what? I'm still going to get a bunch of first round receivers. But in FFPC, like I wouldn't be excited to draft 5 rookie receivers in this year's class. Because if I get this year's to Kadarius Toney or Terrace Marshall, I pissed the pick away. I'd much rather focus my values on running backs and quarterbacks. You know what I mean? And I'll let the receivers come organically because you can usually find replacement level receiver production on waivers.
Well, looking at how he's building his roster, right? So he's got 2 starting wide receivers already, and he's got the best tight end in the game of football.
I like buying with Pitts. That makes it so there's no pressure on you having to fill tight end for a while. So which is a good. You don't want to ever have to use rookie tight ends or a death knell in FFPC.
I'm assuming those 623 firsts. Well, his is going to be especially high. That's going to be a quarterback. He's going to target another quarterback, and then he's probably going to hammer running backs with those. And it's going to be one of those like I don't understand how he went 0-11 or 2-9 or whatever it is the previous year, and then the next season he's the 2 seed in the playoffs, and that's going to be how because he's going to get first year rookie production out of a lot of running backs.
The only other drawback is in FFPC, you play for your picks. So he has to win the toilet bowl or he gets the 105, 106.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be so bad that you can't even field a roster because then you don't get the 101. Now, with 623 firsts, he's casted a wide enough net that like just by default, he's going to probably have 3 or 4 top 6 picks. You know what I mean? So I do think that if you're going to go this route, you want to do what he's doing and literally be like, I want to try to get every first. That way I control the market. But yeah, update us on that, Henry. That's I love extreme strategies like that.
That's what I was going to say. I love it. It's not a half step. It's not a half measure. You're going all the way one way. And look, if it doesn't work, you've got enough capital though that you can quickly turn this boat around.
Yeah, 2 more questions, then we'll sign off. We'll do about 45 minutes. Dominic, DJ Moore, and I'm assuming Marlon Mack for a 24 first and a 23 second. And he's rebuilding. So he's trying to get the picks. Is this enough?
No.
And Marlon Mack's irrelevant, but you want more than this for DJ Moore? Or?
Yeah, I don't. The 24 first, look, it says he's rebuilding. 24 is so far away. I get that you're rebuilding. It's good to have assets in the future, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't like it. I don't particularly like it.
And you'd sell DJ Moore if you can get a package of picks, right? Normally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's one of those guys that's going for a 23 first.
And he's tough because I don't think you can get a 23. And I don't hate having DJ Moore on a rebuild team either. Like we talk all the time about, can you afford to wait a year? You probably have to wait 2 years for DJ Moore to get a good quarterback. But if so, he'll still only be 27 if he ends up with a good quarterback. So I don't know. I can see the process here, but this is one where, maybe you wait a little bit longer, see if you can get more, see if you can get 224 first or something like that. So let's see. David, last one. Backup running backs from the 2022 rookie class that have intrigued you.
So I can't say all of them, right? because that's just cheating.
I mean, any names that have gotten some buzz? There's been quite a few that have gotten. Zamir White's been getting a lot of buzz. Some UDFAs that have gotten buzz in terms of like guys that have a chance to make the roster. Mateo Durant from the Steelers. Anybody else? I mean, that you've thought of?
What was it? What was his name? Justin Mason? Was he the one that
Jordan
was
Mason for San Fran.
Jordan? Yeah, he was
He
getting
got a
all
little
that
buzz.
I'm still sticking with my old standby, Brian Robinson. That's my dude. He's going to be the starter by the end of the season. Outside of that, not a lot has changed for me. So it's the same guys that I was into last month. You know what I mean? So it's still Brian Robinson. Technically, I guess Damon Pierce isn't a starter. So technically, Damon Pierce, considering where you're getting him in rookie draft still, too.
Yeah, another one I want to ask you because you were a fan of this guy, Keontae Ingram. Eno Benjamin's got a lot of buzz recently. That he's he's the second best running back on the roster. That he's the favorite to be the backup. And they signed Darrell Williams. Is Keontae Ingram a guy you'd sell for a third right now?
Yeah, he's gone. See, the fact that Eno's even being put in a position where they can even talk about Eno Benjamin in good terms tells me that Keontae Ingram really is really bad, because Eno Benjamin's probably still trash.
I don't know, really bad. It's just there's enough surrounding the situation. Remember, he got pushed up in rookie drafts because of the situation, and the situation has probably changed the most since he was drafted. I mean,
it's gotten worse, significantly worse.
Yeah, but his draft capital wasn't better than really a lot of the guys around him, but he was going like a round or a half a round or a round higher than like Jerome Ford or Ty Chandler, because people look at their backfields and they go, oh, it's really crowded. There's 3 or 4 guys. People look at Keontae Ingram and they're like, oh, he's the backup. And then now 2 months later, he has to still make the roster. You know what I mean? So it can change really quickly. So I think that this is just an exercise of don't overreact on the news one way or the other. I want to ask you about Pierre Strong, because he got decent capital, but then I don't know. That's another crowded backfield. What would you sell him for a third, or do you want more still?
No, because you know what? When I drafted him, I knew it was extremely crowded back there, right? I already knew that Damian Harris was there. I knew that Ramondre Stevenson was there. I know that they also added Kevin Harris for no particular reason. I know that J.J. Taylor is still on that roster for some odd reason. I knew all these things going into the season when I drafted him. If you were drafting him because you think he's going to be a 2022 play, you're just probably a little overly optimistic. I like Pierre Strong. Damian Harris is going to be gone after this year because Patriots aren't re-signing a running back. Ramondre Stevenson looked really good last year, and he was actually a bell cow when Harris was out, but he also isn't good at holding on to the football. Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a path there. The path still exists for Pierre Strong. I wasn't expecting him to be anywhere but my taxi squad this year anyway.
Yeah, I think the blanket advice, what would you give the listeners for over the next 6 weeks? If anybody comes sniffing around your rookie running backs that you've drafted and you are getting at least a neutral bump compared to where you picked them. So you picked a guy at 308 and they offer you a 23 third or a 23 second for a guy you picked in the late second. Like, are you just taking those and figuring, okay, probably on the clock, if I could have traded away that 308 or 309 for a future third, I would have maybe considered that. But now it's just because somebody wants that specific player, I can push that flexibility into later on in the season and buy it. Like, would you say general rule, you will sell these guys for similar value picked or you take them, or are you more stingent on the profit for next year?
I'm gonna be a Scott guy here. I'm gonna pick the guys I have conviction on, and I'm gonna hold on to them, because if the bump isn't a profit, pure profit, it needs to be a significant profit for me. Even if I don't know if I drafted a guy at 312, okay, Keontae Ingram, any third you offer me, he's gone. That's fine. But Brian Robinson, if you offer me a random second, I'm gonna hold. Pierre Strong, random third, gonna hold.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's going to be my conviction level on those guys. Yeah. Keontae Ingram, he's gone. Who else did we like? Kevin Harris, guys like that.
Well, you had the Damian Pierce, Tyler Algier, Zamir White, Brian Robinson, Terry Davis Price. Like, all those guys were taken in the second in a lot of drafts, right?
Yeah.
So you're never getting more until they're an established starter. So there really isn't a profit unless it's 2 seconds. or something like that. It isn't like, okay, I picked him at the 306 and now somebody's coming to me and giving me a second. Like, I don't care who it is. If I took him in the third round, I'm probably going to sell for a second if we're still in training camp or we're still in the preseason. You know what I mean? But how do you make a profit on like Zamir White or Isaiah Spiller? Like, it's hard to, because you're not getting a first.
You can't until end season, likely, for these guys. Now, Tyler Algier is someone that you could, and you might have drafted only because you were like, I'm trading this dude as soon as the camp reports start that he's going to be the starter, because you don't think he's actually that good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's a guy I think you can make a profit on. But the others, Zamir, hold in season. When Josh Jacobs gets injured, which he will, as much as I love Josh Jacobs, he's going to miss a game somewhere. And Zamir White buzz goes nuts. Then you can see if you can flip him and get an additional pick thrown in.
Makes sense. Henry did clarify that if you're the worst team in the FFPC, you do get the bye in the toilet bowl. So the worst you can get is the 104. So he did clarify that. But good stuff. Any trade questions we got? We'll probably try to get to them. We'll do another. Maybe we'll do one of these over 4th of July weekend. Maybe not. We actually did 2 in the span of 7 days, which is definitely a record. So yeah, averaging out the math, we'll probably do another one like mid-August. And that'll hit our historical average.
And if we did miss any, feel free to throw some in the comments after the show.
Yeah.
Because we definitely go back and read the comments because I'm a narcissist. So I like when people tell me good things about myself and then I ignore the bad things that are said.
Yeah. And you changed your Twitter handle, didn't you?
No, I'm a Shane is the worst.
Oh, you changed the heading. It's like Shane Says now?
Yeah. I went back to Shane Says. I'm going old school.
Okay. Yeah, so you can find Shane at Shane is the Worst, myself, Charles Chill, FFB, at DL Football. I always say that wrong, but that's really what it is, DL Football, even though it's DLF. Subscribe to the channel. Check out our work on our own podcast, which is Manic and Chill, Dynasty and Chill and Dynasty Trades HQ. And we'll be back whenever we'll be back. So I'll be chill. Bye, DLF.
Bye, Shane.